Hello ladies and gentlemen, savvies and civettes, and welcome to my channel. I am VoxAgon, and today we're going to take a gander at Foxhole. A first impression, an early look at this new title that has recently exited from closed alpha into Steam Early Access. Perchance, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. What is Foxhole by game developers Clapfoot? Well, it is a top-down shooter, but only partly. Is it a massively multiplayer, persistent online game? Maybe. Is it a reskinned dwarven mining simulator that rewards awakening the Balrog? Quite possibly. Is it a game where the undervalued proletariat dictate the victors of society and bend the losers over for some bourgeois beating? Absolutely. Did it take me 3 tries to spell bourgeois? Ostensibly. Is it a game that borrows from an early 20th century military aesthetic in order to bring a degree of knowability to player sensibilities? Quite probably. Let's delve in and see what we might awaken. As of this video's recording, Foxhole is in its early access release and in version 1.0. Despite this, I find myself already long exceeding double-digit play hours. At its core, Foxhole is a top-down shooter, in some ways reminiscent of a love child between a twin-stick shooter and the speed of a bolt-action rifle, and it is exactly this careful pace that makes the gameplay of this title so compelling. There are times when all you may see of your enemy is a distant dash of a red ring, marking the soldier as an enemy. You each begin lobbing your 7.62mm rounds at each other in a desperate hope that you'll be the first to connect. You crouch, further hoping the compression of your thighs and torso narrows the spread of your spiraling copper of death. And it does. And you see a faint flash of blood and the disappearance of that distant red ring as your enemy has dropped from frangible flagellation or fled from your field of view, and you feel as if you could kiss the action of your rifle and have your lips sizzle upon the metal in thanks for the fine decisions you have made throughout your life. Only until you explode from a grenade at your feet, and the realization that the floating set of pixels was not a shadow on your monitor, but rather the harbinger of fragmentary doom. This vignette additionally typifies Foxhole's sound design as well. There is no music, no charnel orchestra while one has been subject to the ministrations of a grenade, and this fact works to the game's betterment. It trains the player's ears to listen to those telltale cracks and echoes of war, raising your combat perception knowing that just ahead, only half a screen beyond your monitor, there may be a battle ensuing, and once you're within those throes, the chilling resonance and vibrancy that the weapons in Foxholes fire with create an immersion by their mechanical utilitarianism that brings one closer to a great war more than many AAA titles have ever been able to do. Yet all this remains but one of the encounters you may have with the combat mechanics present in Foxhole. Others may have you using a pair of binoculars while you call out distance and azimuth to a mortar operator or a howitzer team. Another may simply see you suffocating to death in your eponymous foxhole as your wise old enemy opts for the greatest of military dictums, chlorine over cannons. And another may see you running hither and thither under the rattle of fire, begging the lead god to preserve your Kevlarless self, while you use your trauma and medical kits to revive and heal your fellows as your speakers erupt with pleas for salvation from other players. And this is, quite possibly, where Foxhole's greatest strength lies. Press T to talk has never been stronger in a title, and it is this, to a large degree, your own ability to interact with your teammates that will determine the appeal Foxhole may hold for you. Running around in solitude with only a rifle to call your friend and engaging in Sisyphusian manifestations of combat will only test your tolerance of masochism. But to be surrounded by your fellows, as local voice chat fills with orders and strategies and plans that make a cry of Leroy Jenkins seem as if it were bred in a Care Bear factory, is where the apex of Foxhole may be found. Either in this, or in the feckless hope that the conversing enemies you hear just over your sandbag do not notice you hiding from their vision as you play the part of the world's most terrified voyeur. At times, coordination aside, there is nothing finer than to be running along a road and you cry for a lift to a passing truck, only to have them say, "Sorry buddy, we're logistics," and you feel as if you should respond by saying, "I'm not your buddy guy." But instead you carry on shuffling along, knowing full well that those people that you just passed are the true heroes of this game, even if the passenger in the back claims that he is merely going back to the front line to insert some organs into other organs that results in something quite bloody and orgasmic occurring. As with all things within game voice chat, your verbal mileage will definitely vary. Of logistics, however, this aspect of Foxhole's design is the essential component that makes or breaks a war. A well-supplied army has the ability to keep frontline outposts stocked with munitions and respawns, while allowing players who elect themselves to be field engineers to build vital structures in order to defend areas that your side has taken, or to build vehicles of war, field machine guns, half-tracks and light tanks, that will form the spearhead of your next territorial assault. Without a subset of players spending their time harvesting scrap, components, fuel and sulfur from the map, and transporting them to towns, converting them into usable raw materials, and then using those materials to advance the technological beast of war, there indeed would be no war to fight. Or at least, there would be nothing with which to fight a war. And despite Tom Hanks' valor, plinking a tank with 8 rounds in your pistol is as futile as banging on it with your head. Either are going to see you to a bloody pulp pretty swiftly. Now this may be a pitfall for some players. Occupying a logistics role is vital to winning any war in Foxhole, but this role may seem to be one that is bound to boredom perhaps, and in a sense this is true. Yet as are the engines between half-tracks and tanks, different strokes for different folks. In my time I have come across numerous players that prefer the notion of building a truck, driving out to a stockpile, mining it, and converting its delicious essence into the victuals of war. I will additionally admit that I too have found myself filled with the hellscape of the front line and craving the ease of simply manufacturing and building supplies. As in all things of Foxhole, you can play any role you wish to occupy at any time you may choose it. The potential downfall of this dynamic is that if you're unlucky enough to join a server where the persistence of the war has already been decided by a dearth of logistics players, there is often very little one can do to stem the tide of that war. Although, given the early access state of the game, these mechanics will undoubtedly evolve or receive attention in the future. As it stands, presently, logistics is the foundation that, much like a fellow soldier using the local voice chat to vent their frustrations over much wow memes, it may make or break your experience of the game. Lastly, it is up to the dedication of these logistics players to acquire technology parts at a partly random drop rate from their harvesting efforts, which allows for the advancement of certain buildings, such as the vehicle factory, in order for more advanced weapons of warfare to come into play, such as a field machine gun or a crazed half-track driver, with a Mad Max reckless care to their accelerator control and an equally crow-mouthed gunner shouting, "Witness me!" as they insert the contents of a carton of ammunition into your corpse and run over it with their wheels and tracks, ensuring that your bones are suitably crushed by 2 machinations of velocity. Segueing into the setup of Foxhole servers, this may be largely broken down into 2 spheres. That of the persistent military campaign and that of individual servers, each hosting, at any particular point in time, between 80 and 120 players. And even though Clapfoot has spoken of expanding this number as the game develops, recently stating that 140 player servers will soon be available, Foxhole is not a single server title. The campaign games allow you to join a war in progress that takes place over multiple war zones of a linked geographic region. In fact, the maps that individual servers utilize are single instances of these campaign zones. When one or more of these territories has been won or lost by a specific side, play will then progress into one of the adjacent maps, until an ultimate victor has arisen. Individual servers host a single persistent war without any regional or geographical links, yet they too remain persistent. The server, Easy 1 for example, may be running the map Weathered Expanse, a replica of its campaign version, and be in its 23rd day of battle when you, as the player, decide to join its fray. The states of the servers and the days of its wars persist until one side is triumphant over the other. It is quite a militaristic juxtaposition to observe a virgin server on its first day of war against a server in the latter days, where player-built foxholes, pillboxes, and anti-tank emplacements litter the landscape as the architects of war have morphed the geography into some fortified labyrinthian maze that seeks to test the soft plushness of your human body at every turn. Related to the frailty of the human condition, the aesthetics of Foxhole certainly harkens to a World War II one, with the dress of both sides, the Wardens and the Colonials, slightly mirroring that of the Axis and Allies respectively. However, while there exists a slight aesthetic congruence between the game's factions and history's analogues, the Wardens and the Colonials are based within their own lore and context, with neither side bearing any doctrine or appreciable value that may be seen as a parallel with the Second Great War. To me, this was a savvy choice, as it has established the factions of Foxhole within their own right, allowing Clapfoot's artistic team a wonderfully grounded but malleable approach to their art design, as if they have created their own Kelvin timeline, but did it properly, as if they had created an enthralling alternate history free from gratuitous lens flare. While the visuals of Foxhole evoke a historical appreciation, it bleeds early and mid-20th century in such a way that both its technology and rendering establishes itself as one that is altogether unique and appealing. Moreover, the developers have plans in the future to incorporate female soldiers into the fray. No longer shall war merely be the province of man, but a progressive plod through the bloodbath that is our own shared humanity. Perhaps of some concern to some, there is a distinct lack of progression in Foxhole at present. Yet, again, I believe this works in favor for what the game is attempting to accomplish. Being limited only by what one has available in a town hall or an outpost, and not by an arbitrary leveling system, does not gate the game to any of its players. If it's available, it may be used, creating an atmosphere supported by intentional design that is solidly grounded in the authenticity that is being recreated, and never limiting the players to a particular path. This may change as the game iterates in its development, although the developers, I believe, are quite keen on this progression agnosticism. For now, however, the lack of an obstructing leveling system works significantly in its favor. To a large measure, Foxhole additionally relies on its players to educate themselves as to how the game operates. As of Early Access Release 1.0, there is no tutorial. However, during my time with the game, I have always found someone eager and generous with answering my questions, and the community wiki for the game is a vital component of this education. While its learning curve may seem initially steep, within an hour or so one easily graduates from the basics of logistics-based warfare 101. Foxhole is truly a sandbox experience in all the best ways that a video game may be a sandbox. And yes, there are radio towers in the game. They do not have to be climbed. I would like to lastly comment on the game's playability with latency. By and large, I am subject to foreseeing the future when I play video games, having around a ping of 200 milliseconds to European servers and about 300 to the United States, depending on their location. With Foxhole, this certainly remains unchanged, but the nature of firefighting and logistics gameplay in the title is one whereby the impact of latency is very much diminished, and the way in which Foxhole's netcode handles client-server relations has never resulted in me ever experiencing any hiccups or rubber banding to any degree. Naturally, this does not mean that there are times when an enemy has been pulling a Forrest Gump and my rifle rounds end up being behind the savvy sprinter because unlike Qui-Gon I did not see Jar Jar's tongue about to steal that apple. All that being said, Foxhole works exceptionally well regardless of latency, although there are Oceanic, European and Asian servers live for the game should you wish to use them. Although, as a personal note, I would strongly suggest that you try a server that is absent from any geographical proximity. Some of my best moments in Foxhole have come from being in a squad comprised of people from all over the world. There's nothing quite like having a flurry of accents as a heavy machine gun opens up on one's ill-conceived plans of stealth, only to have the dying gasps of your compatriots cry out in resonant hues of our planet. Even as Foxhole stands now in early access, if what you have seen and what you have heard appeals to you in the slightest, I urge you to try the game for yourselves. I believe the price of the title is encouraging towards this end, and from what I have read and observed of Clapfoot themselves, they are a developer keenly passionate about their title. Yet, as with all early access titles, be cautious, and if you would prefer to wait for a full release, the title may only improve by then. However, if you are so inclined, and your personality tempted and tantalized by these tidbits, then I do not believe you would be disappointed in the battlefield that awaits you, as long as your finger is never far from pressing T to talk. Whether you show respect or not, that is entirely up to you. But be respectful. You're at war. You're not a barbarian. I have been VoxAgon, and thank you very much for your time and for watching. Until we meet again.
No! No! No!
Oh!
Holy shit! What's going on?
So many medics.
The Russian boys. Oh no, I gotta see the shadow of the tank. I'm not going there. Holy fucking fuck.
Oh, I picked up a carbine. fuck, I see the...
Think something wrong.
Yeah, the tank's right up there.
Come back, come back.